Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? It is 3:10 a.m. I fell asleep for a little while. Actually, my plan was that I was gonna vlog early tonight and go to bed early. But that didn't end up happening because Alex and his friend Sarah and two our friends had a little impromptu pajama party, face mask, game playing evening. And so they invited me, and so I came over for that too. We didn't end up doing face masks, we just played games. I don't know what this game is called that Alex got. It's really fun though, but it's like, you hold up a card, and you have to like sound out what it sounds like, and guess what it is. It's really fun. His one friend was really, really good at it though, so she was like getting him like this. We ended up putting her on like a time limit, like she had to wait like 30 seconds before she could jump in because she was getting them so quickly. But that was fun, and Sarah got some veggie pizza and breadsticks, and then her other friend made these chocolate chip cookies, and it was fun. We sat over there, and then at the end of the night we were just kind of like looking at TikToks and stuff. You guys see my sweatshirt? I have my PP sweatshirt on, look, isn't that so sweet? A little PP on it. Aww. So yeah, that was our fun evening. It was fun. It was like really nice. It was kind of like laid back. Tanya and I were talking about that earlier, because today is Tanya's birthday. So happy birthday, Tanya Jean. Happy birthday, Tanya Jean. We were talking about, like, you know, back in the day, like always going out on Friday and Saturday nights, and now what like Saturday nights look like as you get older. It's like you don't really do that anymore, you know? So what did I do today? Let's see. I got up, Alex and I slept in. I kind of thought we would go to brunch, but we didn't end up going to brunch. What did we do? Oh my God, I slept through the almost entire night last night, and then I got up and I vlogged, and I did that review video, and then I came back, and I went back to bed with Alex and the dogs. I was so cozy this morning, and I just kind of laid in bed and talked to the dogs for a little bit, and then they were so sweet. They're always so sweet in the morning. I mean, they're so sweet all the time, but like in the mornings they're like super sweet because they're half asleep, you know? And then I have got to go get something to drink. I am so thirsty, and like my coffee is empty, so I'm gonna go to McDonald's and get something to drink. And then I went back to sleep, and I slept till like noon. It was really nice, and Alex slept till about the same time. And then he watched shows on Netflix this afternoon. I don't know what he was watching. He wasn't watching Schitt's Creek. He was watching something else. I can't remember. I asked him what he was watching. And then I made some videos. I went and got coffee for he and I brought his coffee back. And then I went and ran some errands. And then I came back and I made some videos. And that took me through the better part of the afternoon to like 6:30. And what did I do after that? Well, he went over to Sarah's before I did. He went over there at like 7:30. And then I took a shower, and I made a TikTok, and got changed. I just put on this hoodie and my jeans and went over there. I didn't wear my pajamas. They were all like in their pajamas and robes. But it was fun. That was our day. It was really relaxing. I wanted to watch The Pharmacist today, and I never got around to it. So when I get done vlogging, because I went to sleep at like, we got back from Sarah's at like, it was early. It was like 11:15. And I laid down, and he went to bed, and It's so funny, God. When I think about our early days together, you know, that we were like out till 4 or 5, you know, 6 sometimes on the weekends, and now it's like Saturday night, and my husband's in bed by 11:30 on a Saturday night, you know, it's so funny. And, oh, she had fresh pineapple and watermelon too, that was really good. The pineapple, I had the pineapple, it was delicious. And, so anyway, if I get done with everything, well, I want to listen to a little bit of my audiobook too. I don't know what I think about this audiobook. So I'm listening to Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander, this neuroscientist. Okay, here's the book. Here's my issue with it. So the book is about his near-death experience. And I was really excited about reading this book. And I have to tell you, this is kind of my issue with these near-death experiences and psychics and mediums and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. So with psychics and mediums, I want some kind of like very real experience. Like I want to go and have them tell me something that is like irrefutable. Like, and I've talked about this on here before. Like I have a sign that like if my mother comes to visit me, I know it's my mom, right? And like nobody has told me that yet. And I've gone to my fair share of psychics and mediums. Actually, my friend Valerie gave me the name of somebody that I'm gonna check into that she goes to. So we'll see. I've only ever gone to one person where it was pretty valid, but even then, it was still kind of vague. And so, I mean, it seemed like 100% to me, but at that time, I don't know, in retrospect, maybe it was because I wanted to hear some of that stuff. Who knows, right? So, I wouldn't say I'm a skeptic. I'm a believer. I just don't feel like I've met the right person yet, if that makes sense. So then when it comes to like these near-death experiences, I always like in the past, like when I read the books and like read the articles and stuff, it was always these very vague interpretations of what the afterlife was like. You know, the closest that I ever came to reading like a very real example, I didn't realize I was so low on gas, a very real example of what the afterlife is like was from Sylvia Browne, who wrote The Other Side and Back, and she was a psychic, and I love Sylvia Browne, but I mean, some things happened at the end of her life that I just think she just was a complete fake, is what I think, and it makes me sad because I really like Sylvia Browne. But a lot of these, or many of these near-death experiences that you read about are just really, really vague. And it's kind of like the whole idea of like a bright light, or, you know, I was, you know, walking through a tunnel or floating or whatever. It's just like they're so vague, right? And there's not really any specific kind of this happened or that happened or whatever. And in fact, one of the things that it says in this book is that he like meets this sister or something that he didn't even know that he even had, or I don't know, something like that, right? So I thought, okay, this book is going to be really, really specific. It's from a neuroscientist point of view. So he's somebody that didn't necessarily believe in this stuff anyway. So I'm like, it's going to be real believable. So here's the deal with the book. The book is interesting. And I was telling Mel this because there's a book that we were kind of thinking about reading, and I was like, well, let me tell you what my issue is with that book. Okay, so she wanted to read this book. She was thinking about this book about this guy that went searching for his biological father, and he found out that through DNA that it might be the Zodiac Killer. Well, the book is getting a lot of criticism, or it got a lot of criticism when it came out, and they think the guy made the whole thing up. But she was like, I know, but I think it would be a really interesting read, even if it is, like, his story is fake, because then we could talk about that as well, which I totally agree, right? But if 90% of the book is going to be about this guy searching for his biological father, and the other 10% is going to be about the Zodiac Killer, then I have no interest in reading it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't just want to read a book about some random person. Okay. So this Dr. Eben Alexander, his book is, I would say, 90%, well, not 90, I would say 75 to 80% about him getting E. coli meningitis, his family history, his relationship with his wife and kids, family members, friends, being adopted. That's like the whole story, right? The other 10 to 15% of it is about his near-death experience. And it's very, very vague. Very, very vague. And much of it is about this thing that he calls the core. And it's like this earthworm point of view that he's in. This he calls it the core that he's at, right? And how he's scared that he's in this core. And so it's not even really like if you were gonna read this book to find some hope, or God, there's so many people in line at McDonald's. What is going on? Oh, I guess because the bar's just closed or something. It doesn't even like offer really that much hope. Like, it's just kind of, I don't know. I don't know what I think, but I just, like, the book is not bad. Like, the book is interesting, kind of, like, to hear about his life and how he got where he got in life and stuff like that, and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, like, it's totally not what I was looking for. It wasn't what I expected whatsoever when I thought that I was going to be reading a book about, it says grab a melty, juicy burger. Oh my Lord. It's nothing that I thought it would be when I thought I would be reading a book about a near-death experience. Like, none whatsoever. It's about a book, it's a book about this guy's medical conditions, and that a side note to that is that he had a near-death experience. Which just kind of starts and stops, and there was no discussion about the sister that he met. There were no specifics about it whatsoever. Like, he goes in, and he's in this core thing, and then he comes out of this core thing, and then he's, like, riding on this butterfly thing that's like a wing with this soul, and she's beautiful, like just unbelievable beauty, and she basically communicates to him that everything is about love, and he's flying over this countryside of, like, people, and it's this beautiful countryside of rivers and, you know, whatever, and animals running, and then he goes up into the clouds, and he's kind of like, he understands about all the different universes and different beings of the levels, kind of, but that's like very, very short. And then he's back in the core again. He keeps on going back into this core thing, and then they tell him that it's not time, and he can see these beings around him. That might be when he talked about his sister. I wasn't paying too much attention at that point. I was kind of over it. And then he knew that it was time for him to go back. And that's what happened. It's so, like, brief about this near-death experience that I'm just like, this is not what I wanted to read at all. He has a whole video on YouTube that I'm actually gonna watch. It's like a speech thing, or like a speaking engagement, or it was like an interview that he did or something. I noticed that was on there when I looked up near-death experiences. It talked about Dr. Eben Alexander, and so I was like, I'm gonna watch this and see what it's like compared to his book. But I will tell you that I have a feeling that I know why he didn't include it all in this book. And that is because he's written like 3 other books. And so I'm sure the other books have other pieces to the puzzle of the near-death experience. But I'm done reading it after this. He's very interesting, I'm sure, and a very nice guy, but like, this wasn't what I was looking for. And I think the thing that's most upsetting to me, too, about reading it, is that he says at the beginning of the book that this book is for those people that always wanted to believe, but something kept them from believing, and that after reading this book, you'll know that heaven is for real. I don't feel that way after reading this book. And I don't feel any different after reading this book than I did before. And I have still 2 hours
Can I have you?
Yeah, can I get a large Dr. Pepper, please?
Marijuana?
That's it.
One on that, please, second window.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 hours and 45 minutes left, which for me is an hour and 20 some minutes. So we'll see. I mean, maybe something will happen in the last, you know, half an hour or whatever, and I'll completely change my mind and come back and be like, the book was absolutely amazing, but I don't think so. I already got all my money out and ready to go because I knew that I wanted to get a drink. Dance for me, dance for me, dance for me. Oh, oh, oh. I don't regret reading it, but I don't know what I gained by reading it, I guess is my question, you know? Like, if I had read, let's say if I had read a fiction book instead, because I wanted to read the third installment to the Truly Devious book, and, because I'm going to try to start Mindhunter tomorrow, and finish Mindhunter by the time that we go to Dallas, which I don't know if that's possible or not, but I'm gonna try to do that. So that, because then that'll still be 2 books a week that I'm reading. And then listen to something else that's a little bit shorter while I'm in Dallas, because the chances are I probably won't be listening to a lot of books, you know, while we're on vacation. I just don't do that, you know, and it's not like I'm gonna be in a car driving around from place to place. Because I listen to a lot of my audiobooks like throughout the day when I'm doing like errands and stuff like that. Like I'll have it on in the background, so it's like when I get, you know, a lot of my book time in. It is whatever it is. I mean, if I have to read, you know, 3 books the following week, I can do that, but I don't know, I was just really excited about reading this book. I really thought I would have some kind of like, profound experience, like reading it. I didn't have that. And I was gonna read that Embraced by the Light book, because I think I have it in my basement, like with everything else. And I think I actually read parts of it years ago, if not the whole thing. I don't remember it at all. But after seeing her interview on Oprah, I'm not sure what I think of her either. I don't know that I think it's fake or real. Like, she said, like, on Oprah, like, I didn't know this about her story. All I knew was that it was on the bestseller list for weeks on end, and that the book is called Embraced by the Light by Betty J. Eady. And I think it's Betty J. Eady, or I think they pronounce it Edie, but anyway, it's E-A-D-I-E. And that, it was like getting all this attention at the time. And, you know, there's been a lot of near-death experience books that have come out, and people, like, speculated. They talked about this on the show. Like, they had this, like, family therapist, counselor, or whatever, and he said, I think it came out at the right time when people were really searching for this, and he was a skeptic. So one of the criticisms that she's received, apparently, this book came out a while ago, like probably 20 years ago, but one of the the criticisms that she received is she would never tell the hospital that she was in, where she had died, and he does, like, he goes into extreme detail in his book about what happened, but she never gave any specific details about, like, the hospital she was in, when it happened, the time that she never documented any of that. And when asked, she's like, well, if you don't believe me, you don't believe me. I mean, that's kind of like, what do you mean if I don't believe you? Like, if it's your story, why don't you give us the facts? You know what I mean? Which I think that's interesting, that she didn't want to give any of the specifics about what hospital and stuff it was. And Oprah even asks her on the show, and she's like, I've given enough information, and if people don't believe me, they just don't believe me. And I thought, well, that's a pretty, I think, fair question to ask somebody, like, what hospital were you in? I mean, what if you were never in a hospital? That would be pretty easy to prove, wouldn't it? You know, that I was at, like, you know, St. Joseph's Hospital or something, and here it is, and yeah, here are skeptics, take it and shove it. But The fact that and what I didn't understand about that either is why you wouldn't give that information. Like, isn't that weird? Why somebody wouldn't give that information about what hospital they were in. Like, that's skeptical to me. Like, that's not me being a skeptic. Like, that's skeptical, is that the word I'm looking for? Why is it doing this? This is weird. It's showing my battery voltage. Why is it doing that? It's never shown that before. I don't know what is going on. Like, Tanya always gets in here and she always starts touching stuff. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Now it says memory system unavailable, vehicle not in park. But I have it back on the mile per hour, so we'll see if it's like back to normal. These people in front of me have like complained and sent drinks back and ketchups and all kinds of stuff. I don't understand what's going on. How are you doing?
Okay.
Thank you. I don't need any change. I think that was right. I didn't give her 110. Is that right? Oh, I didn't need change. Thank you, dear. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. Those French fries smelled so good. So, I don't know what I'm gonna read. Well, next I am gonna read Mindhunter. And Mel finished it today and she said it was so good. So I'm really excited about reading it now. I guess I can tell what book we're gonna read for March, because by the time by the time this vlog is up, we'll have already, ow, dang nation. That hurt. My nail isn't, it's fine. What did I scratch myself with? I'll pull in here and read it in a second, because I don't really know much about it either. We had discussed reading it because Mel had said she wanted to read this book. Like in December, we talked about it as one of the books we were going to read in possibly January or February. And so, well, one of the reasons why I want to read Mindhunter and get it done too is because I'd like to read or watch the show on Netflix. But I have to finish The Pharmacist first, which I'm real excited about watching the rest of that show. But anyway, where am I at? Oh my God, am I almost at 23 and a half minutes already? That's crazy. So Mel, she is so good at researching the books, but I had researched a couple books too that I wanted to read possibly. One of the books that she suggested was just called Newtown. And about the Newtown, Connecticut shootings, this elementary school. Now, that is a case that I have been greatly affected by. Like when I watched the documentary, and I would love to read a book about that. I think it would be interesting to read a book about really like the story of, I think the book was, okay, it was stopped, it was at the end. I think the book goes into more depth about like the family members and the shooter and what happened, and there's a lot about mental health illness and things like that with that. Well, the book came out in 2013. There's only like 1,000 reviews of it, and you can't get it anywhere. So we can't read that book. There might be another book about it out there, though, so we'll have to look and see. So then she recommended some other books, and I had some books that I had thought about reading, too. So, one of which I think we're going to read tentatively. So my pick is going to tentatively be April, which is interesting because January, we kind of decided on together. February, I picked Mindhunter. March, she picked the book. And April, I picked the book, which is like we had said this year that we were going to go back and forth between she and I picking the books. Although, oh, dang it. I had a recommendation for her. Mel really likes to read about like old school stuff, like Jack the Ripper, Bonnie and Clyde, all that kind of stuff. There's actually a book out, and it's called, somebody commented on my, either on my vlog or my booktube channel about it, and it's called 5 Women, or The 5 Women, or something like that. And it's the background stories of the 5 women that were killed by Jack the Ripper. And it's supposed to be really, really good, and it's supposed to be a focus on just the victims. So I thought that might be an interesting read, because she really wants to read something about that. She also wants to read about the Black Dahlia. So we've got to find a good book about that for this year too, because she's really wanting to read that. But I think we're gonna do, well, here. So this is the book that we're gonna read for February, or for March. Let me pull it up. I don't know anything about this, but it's supposed to be good. Hold on. Is this it? This isn't it. Okay, this is not it. This must be it then. Hold on a second. This can't be it, because it only has 375 reviews. Who is this by? See, okay, Mel always picks these really obscure books, but I had her look it up, and she said that it's on everything. Here it is. It got really bad Goodreads reviews. I mean, it didn't get bad reviews, it just didn't get hardly any reviews. It was written in 1991. Anyway, it's Butcher Baker, and the true account of Alaska's serial killer Robert Hansen the Baker, who hunted the streets of Anchorage and Seward in the 70s and 80s, butchering up to 30 young women. This book details the extraordinary work and dedication of a handful of Alaska state troopers who were brought him to justice. Now, a lot of people are wanting to read this book, and I think it sounds really, really interesting. And apparently in Mindhunter, John Douglas references Butcher Baker. So, it'll be interesting to read the book. But like, it only has 375 ratings and 47 reviews. I wonder why people aren't reading it. Oh, it was a movie too. The two authors of this book wrote it in such a way that it is mostly dialogue. The dialogue is taken from court transcripts and police transcripts and the other author's interviews. Robert Hansen is described by one victim who escaped as having, okay, he would offer a girl. This person writes an entire, it actually got pretty good reviews. So, yeah. So we're gonna read that in March, and then in February, or in April, we have a book that doesn't really have anything to do with any kind of serial killer or anything. And then I think that's April, and then starting in May, we're just gonna consider May the summer. I think we're gonna do a summer of serial killers again. Because we had fun doing that last year. And a lot of people really, really enjoyed reading the serial killer books. But I think that, I mean, we won't necessarily pick serial killers. I mean, we might pick some random other books. I wanna read a book, and so does Mel, about those women that were abducted, I think in Pennsylvania or Ohio. I think it was Ohio, and escaped. So one of them has written a book, or maybe more than one of them, so we might read that. And we also talked about, we could read that in May. We could do that in May, and then in the summer, we could read an abduction book in May. Like why can't I think of her name? Is it J.C. Duggard? Is that her name? I've read the books. Those books are real, or the first book. The book is really interesting. So we might do that in May. We'll have to see. I also want to read Parkland by David Cullen, but that's a really, that'll be a long book, just like Columbine. He wrote Columbine, but it's supposed to be fantastic. Dance for me, dance for me, dance for me. I don't know why it keeps on doing this thing. Tomorrow is the book club live stream at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are discussing If You Tell by Greg Olson. Is that what it's called? It feels like so long ago that I read that book. It was like 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago that I read it. And it's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's the Oscars. I was telling Tanya the other night, like, I feel like I should watch them. Like, it's so weird how I feel about it. I haven't seen any of the movies. Not one of the movies. I haven't seen any of them this year. And I got kind of sad about it earlier. Like, I was like, you know, a couple years ago, I talked about this where I went and I saw, it's been a long time now, 2012 or something, I think it was, I looked it up on here, where I went and I watched every single one of the movies that was up for an Academy Award. Like, every day I went, like, for, like, Thursday, Friday, and Thursday and all day Thursday night, and Friday and all day Friday night, I went and saw all the movies, and I saw, like, every movie that was up that year. It was so much fun. I had such a great time doing that. And so I kind of wanted to do that this year, but I had so many things I had to do, and it just kind of, like, got away from me. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like sitting in a movie theater all weekend long. But I kind of regret it now. I wish I had. And so Tanya was asking me, she was like, you know, like, what do you want to do for the Oscars? Because she's always very good to me about, you know, since my mom has passed, like, you know, my mom and I used to always watch the Oscars together. Always. I mean, it was like such a huge thing in our house. And I keep on forgetting, like, sometimes that some people haven't been on this vlog for, like, the entirety that I've been, you know, from, like, day one. So when I was growing up, well, when my mom was growing up, my mom and my aunt were very, very poor. And so they went to the movies a lot, and they watched a lot of movies. And my mom was always obsessed with, like, the big Hollywood, you know, movies, like Singing in the Rain was, like, her favorite. And as she got older, she loved, like, Alfred Hitchcock movies, and she loved, like, the big ensemble cast movies. And she, at one point, wanted to, her dream was, one of her dream jobs, she wanted to be a trial attorney and live in San Francisco Bay, in a houseboat. But, like, another one of her dreams was that she wanted to work for Edith Head, the costume designer, who was, like, the world famous costume designer that did, like, Grace Kelly's dresses and stuff like that, and, like, Rear Window. She wanted to work, like, as her assistant. And so when I was growing up, like, my mom, her first love was always movies. My mom was probably one of the most well-versed people I have ever met when it comes to film. Not so much, I would say, like, in the history of film, because, like, I took some film history classes, because I minored in film in college, which basically means I took 4 classes. I took Intro to Film 1, Intro to Film 2, third film studies class, and French cinema. French cinema was actually really, really, really interesting class. I remember we read, oh my God, we watched that, this changed me kind of, like, at that time. This was actually, I took French cinema after I got sober. My second Intro to Film Studies class is where I met my boyfriend Todd, that I've talked about on here, that I found out died a couple years ago. He and I were in that class, and I remember we watched, the first movie we watched in that class was Peggy Sue Got Married, which was one of my very favorite movies ever. But oh God, he was so cute, Todd. Anyway, So I took this French cinema class. It was like horrible. It was at like 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday mornings or something, but it was such an interesting class. And we watched all of these films that I would never have watched had I not taken that class. And I remember we watched this one, it was called Breathless, and it was the French, I think, was like Bout de Souffle or something like that. And it was Jean-Paul Belmondo, who was like a famous star, like in the 60s or late 60s, early 70s in France. And he did all of these movies where he was very much like Humphrey Bogart kind of character, but sexier. And I became kind of obsessed with those movies for a while, those like French cinema movies. I watched like so many films in French. Like that's where I got used to watching films with subtitles, to where I just really didn't have an issue with it whatsoever. And so yeah, so why was I saying that? I don't know, but anyway, she didn't know like analytical film and stuff like that, but she would analyze the film. Like we would sit there and talk about a film, and she would just like analyze it to pieces. But she loved just watching movies. And my mom watched everything. She loved comedies, but she mostly loved like dramas. And she really hated horror movies. We went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee for Christmas one year, and I brought like Hostel and Hostel 2. And she was really upset. She was like, "What are you making me watch?" She was like, "I don't like this." My mother didn't like gratuitous violence for no reason. She just thought it was pointless. She also didn't love gratuitous nudity for no reason, but she didn't have a problem with violence or nudity if it served a point in the movie. Neither one of my parents like had an issue with that, you know, like especially when I was growing up, but it had to have like, and they would sit there and talk to me about it, but it had to have a reason for being there. It couldn't just be random, you know. My mom just hated like randomly throwing stuff like that into a movie when it had absolutely no reason to be there whatsoever. So, you know, I grew up on great movies. I really did, you know, like, I can remember being a little kid and like sleeping at the edge of my mom's, like, you know, she'd have the fan on in the summers and I would be at the edge of her bed, you know, like while she was watching a movie, and I'd be like, you know, half asleep, and it would be the end of The Way We Were, you know, and the music, you know, from when she's like, "See ya, Hubble, see ya, Katie." And I even put that in my mom's, like, in my mom's, the entire eulogy that I wrote and read from my mom's when she passed at her funeral, was all about movies that we loved together. And so I grew up with this great appreciation for movies from my mom. And every year we watched the Academy Awards. Every year we watched the Academy Awards. And as I got older and I would, you know, like once I got sober and I had my own place and she was sober and whatever, like I would always come over to her condo, and she would make like a huge plate of cheese, and she would light candles, and it was very like, you had to come, you know, not dressed nice. I'd wear like, you know, a nice sweater and jeans or whatever, but she would always like say, "Okay, you have to come dressed as your favorite movie star." And every year she would always have like this silver sweater set, and it was like this short sleeve, like, you know, silver turtleneck, a silver threaded turtleneck, and then it was like, it was real cute, and this like sweater set, short sleeve sweater, but she would have a name tag on it and it said Sharon Stone, and she'd always say, "Do you think I look like Sharon Stone?" And I'd be like, "No, Mom, you don't look like Sharon Stone." But my mom did have like platinum blonde hair her entire life. So anyway, well, it's not true. My mom had alopecia for a while, and when it grew back like light brown, and it was really thick. She was so, I mean, that whole story is crazy on its own, but anyway, my mom had alopecia for about 2 years. And there's 2 different kinds of alopecia, I think. I'm not an expert on it, but the way that my mom explained it to me, there's like male pattern balding, and then there's stress-related alopecia. And at first they couldn't figure out what it was, and then they thought it was stress-related, and she was getting cortisone shots in her scalp, and it was real painful. And then the doctor was like, I think it's time for you to go the route of getting a wig. And my mom went and tried on these wigs, and she was like, I'm not doing this. And then she was just done at that point. She'd been wearing scarves, she'd been wearing hats, and she said, forget it. And she cut her hair real short, and it started growing back. Is that not a crazy story? It was like when my mom finally surrendered, it started growing back. And it grew back really thick. And it was brown. Well, her hair was naturally brown anyway. But so anyway, she, it was brown, and she let it be brown. And then, she started getting it colored. My ex did her hair for a long, my ex is a hairstylist, and he did her hair for a long time. And, he did a beautiful job on her hair. Her hair was absolutely gorgeous. And, it was always kind of like down at it. Like, for a long time, it was like shoulder length and longer. But then as she got older, she kind of got it cut like, it would be like, it was kind of like, it was longer like bob, but like at an angle, and kind of like angled, and she always tucked one side behind her ear. But kind of like that look that, what's that one Spice Girl's name, that David Beckham's wife, what's her name? I can never think of her name, but anyway, kind of like Victoria Beckham. That's kind of looked like that style for, you know. But anyway, and she had a bob for a while, and she would tuck both sides behind her ears, and just real cute haircut. You know, my mom always had. But anyway, but she didn't look like Sharon Stone, not one bit. So anyway, you know, we would sit there and we would watch the Academy Awards, and it would be like my mom and I and whoever I was dating at the time, or, you know, like, I don't know, she'd have like a friend over, but very rarely. It was typically just me and my mom, you know? It was typically always just me and my mom. I don't know where the people were that I was dating or whatever. I think they had other things to do that night or whatever. And so my mom and I would sit there, and, you know, the Academy Awards go late. They're always supposed to be over at 11, but they don't end until like, you know, almost 12. And we would watch every minute of it. And, you know, she would talk and talk and talk and talk. And then when she, like, wanted there to be silent, she'd be, shh, 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 shh. Let's stop talking, let's stop talking. And, this car behind me is so close to me. It's like riding on my butt. I remember every year we would cry when we watched the In Memoriam of all of the people that had passed from the year before. And I remember the year after my mom died, I don't think I watched the Academy Awards the year after my mom died. There were a lot of things. I don't know that I realized this at the time. It was kind of like in retrospect. But like, I just wouldn't. Okay, so the year after my mom died, I was with Alex, and I can remember him being like, don't you want to watch the Academy Awards? Oh, no, that's not true. I did watch them. Tanya asked me to come over, and I went and watched her, and I had a really hard time. And the In Memoriam part, it was either that year or I did the Academy Awards the year after with Tanya. I can't remember, but I think it was the first year I did do it. I can never remember anything anymore. But anyway, I either did it the first year, not the second, or I didn't do it the first year and then I did it. I can't remember. But the In Memoriam part, I really struggled with, because that was like a thing that my mom and I watched, and then now she's gone, you know? It's where like all of the people that have, like all the famous people from the year before have passed and stuff. And, yeah. So I don't even know if I'm gonna watch them tomorrow night. Like, I don't even know that I care. Isn't that horrible? My aunt and uncle always watched them every year. Now they're gone. We just have always been such a movie family. My uncle, my God. My uncle, there was not a movie that... Oh, the battery's dying. I know I have my other battery here. Oh, did I... Please, God, tell me I brought it. Here it is. My uncle... he literally, now I don't remember this so much from when like I was younger, but as I got older, he literally saw every single movie that ever came out. I mean, I don't even care if it was animated. He saw every movie, and he took David to see almost every movie. Like, they went to so many movies together, and he would watch movies at home. And he used to laugh. I remember after my aunt died, and they were, like, getting ready to, like, get rid of the house, and they were putting it together and stuff. We were over there, and he and David were laughing because my uncle was still getting movies from Netflix where you could order, like, the DVDs in the mail. Do you remember that? Like, I don't know that people remember how, like, Netflix really started. Like, it started with, like, this thing where you would, like, pick movies out online, and then they would send you DVDs, and it would take, like, 2 days, and then you would send them back, and the next 2 movies that you had, they would send to you, and stuff like that. I think I had the Saving Grace DVDs for about a year. They didn't charge you unless you never sent it back, you know? So, okay, hold on just a second. I'm gonna replace the battery. Okay, I'm back. So, my uncle was always somebody that, like, rented those movies from not even rented them, just got them from Netflix. And he got laughing so hard. I can see him there in his bed. And he got laughing so hard at, the fact that, I wanted to go down here and see this really quick. He got laughing so hard at the fact that he was like the only person alive that was probably still getting movies from Netflix, that everybody else was like streaming, you know? Do you guys want to see my old office? I'll show you my old office. Well, it doesn't exist anymore because just the downstairs, that was my office, exists. But now, it was only 1 floor when I was there, but they tore the back out, and they made it into, it's an art gallery now, I think. This was my very first office I ever had. Here's my favorite vintage store in the entire world, Broderpool Vintage. I love this store so much. Here, I'll just put you guys like this, and then we'll do a little tour. God, everything looks different over here. I didn't see these. They're building these big buildings right here. I didn't even know that. You know what? I went the wrong way. Okay, it doesn't matter. We can still get there from here. Time. So here was my first office back in the day. Right here. Got it. Well, it doesn't look anything like it did. It's completely different now. Yeah. They tore the whole building down. I thought they had just torn. You know what I want to see? I don't know that I can go back there because I think it's probably private property now, but in the back, I had this huge bay window. So I was in the front, and then I moved to the back. And in the back, I had this huge bay window. And, but I thought they'd kept the downstairs. There was like stained glass in that building. There was like built-in bookshelves. It was fantastic. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they got rid of all of that. I don't think you can go back there anymore. Oh, you can see the back of the building from there. You can go through. I'm gonna go through because I want to see. This is my old stomping grounds. So this was like this alley. If this bay window is still here, I'm gonna die, you guys. So here's this little alley right here. We're gonna go through. And to the left up here is the building. Oh, you can't really go through. Okay, I'm gonna have to back out, but is there a bay window? There's no bay window anymore. No. But see that door right there? That was my old door to my old office. So they kept the old door. That's interesting. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna get out of here. Oh, excuse my language. What's so interesting is that this like studio right here, this art studio, she was there when I was there too. God, it's so strange. Old times. That's crazy. That was like, I moved out of there 12 years ago. Now we'll go through this really, all of this has changed right here. This is Broad Ripple. We'll go through this really bougie apartment building called The Coil, which is really cute. And they have a Fresh Time grocery store. Look at this, can you imagine? I mean, I know some people have apartments like this, but we don't have very much of this in Indianapolis. But there is a Fresh Time grocery store right there in the downstairs of their grocery store. Can you even, or in their apartment. Can you even imagine? Okay, I had to stop the camera because I started showing something that I probably shouldn't show. Not because of me, just because, well, it's just, you know, it was just like private to somebody else, so I probably shouldn't show that. But anyway, while I was showing that, I was going in and I was talking about how Alex has always, you know, wanted to live in a high-rise because, you know, he grew up in Venezuela and he grew up in a high-rise, and so for him, like, to live in a high-rise, not here, like, I mean, and there aren't any high-rises in Indianapolis, so, like, you know, what are you gonna do? But, like, he likes living in a condo here. He'd be in a house. He's never wanted a big house, so, like, that's one thing that he and I both agree on. We've never wanted, like, a big house, because it's, like, a lot to take care of. I think when I was younger, I thought I wanted a big house. You know, I would, like, a lot of my friends had like $500,000, $1 million houses, and I would be like, what did I do wrong? And they have these beautiful houses and these in-ground pools, and, you know, they're on the lake and all this kind of stuff. And then as I got older, I realized, like, I don't know, like, that's way too much adulting for me. I mean, our space is small, and I like that we have a small space. I really do, you know? And, so, but anyway, he's always wanted to, like, have an apartment or a condo, like, in some high-rise in Miami. Because that's very similar to how he grew up in Venezuela. I always wanted to have, like, some little small house. Like, you know, 2-bedroom, like, with a little office den area. It's very Spanish kind of stucco deal, you know? With, like, very, like, you know, big windows and, you know, kind of like, I don't know, some little stone path out to a small pool and back and whatever. You know, fenced in yard for the dogs and whatever. Okay, which there's actually, like, in Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of that. But in Miami and around, right around Miami, there's not. And if it is, then it needs a lot of work, okay? Because one thing that Florida has a lot, and that's foreclosures. One thing that Florida has a lot are houses that need a lot of work. But we're not people that, like, do, like, we're just not, like, that's not what we're good at, right? Like, neither one of us are great when it comes to fixing anything up. So, when I was down there the first time, I, you know, was walking around that one day, and I looked at some different, like, buildings, and I was like, could I live here? Like, I really asked myself that question. And I talked to this girl outside this one building, because this one building was so cool. I don't even know how to explain it. But so the area that we want to be in is like Brickell to Coral Gables, somewhere in there. And so, but really more like in Brickell area. And there was this one building, and if you asked me, like, describe the building you want to live in, this would not be the building I would describe. But when I saw it, it was just very cool. And architecturally, it was like, one condo would be here, and then one would be offset, and then the other one, it looked like some kind of pagoda kind of deal. And it was like all this like dark wood, and people had just like tons of like plants and like bougainvillea coming off of like their patios. It just was a beautiful building. and it looked alive almost, and it had a pool on top, and it was very quiet, and that was one of the things I liked. And it, you know, it had like a coffee shop in the ground floor, and it had like this doggy daycare in the ground floor, and it had this amazing gym and stuff, like this whole gym. It looked like a gym, like here, not just like an apartment gym, you know? And it had this like, next to the building, like across the street, it had like this, I don't know, call it like a general store, but like a 24-hour store, and that building had a coffee shop in it too, and it was just like, I don't know, it was just like, all of those buildings had some amenities in them, like, you know, like hair salons or, you know, whatever, and I was like, and it was so quiet when I was walking through that neighborhood, you know, and people were walking their dogs, and it felt very safe. And it was also like, I could imagine myself like getting in my car and then going and just driving for 20 or 30 minutes, maybe not into Miami proper, but like in the, you know, surrounding area that's just like this is. And I was like, I could totally do this. Like, I could realistically do this. And I don't know, it was just really refreshing. And so, you know, I came back and I had shown, you know, he doesn't care. He's like, I mean, if tomorrow I said we're gonna get this condo, he'd be like, okay, let's do it. I'm ready, let's go. You know, but so now we keep our eyes, we've like narrowed it down, so we've looked at some buildings online. You know, they're extremely expensive. So it's gonna depend on, you know, when the financing is right and things like that. It could be next year, it could be this year, it could be 5 years from now. It just depends, you know? And we're both open to that, but we're keeping it. Really what we're looking at is finding exactly what we want for like the right price. And since we're in no hurry to do it, it's kind of like, we're in a good spot. The other problem is this, and if you live in a big city, I'm sure you'll relate to this. Like, okay, so in Indianapolis, we pay a maintenance fee for our condo. We pay a homeowners association fee, a maintenance fee. And that includes snow removal, all landscaping, anything on the outside of the condo. So like the roof, which we've had our roof redone. We've had the buildings repainted. Every other year they repaint our buildings. Because they do like half one year and half the next year. And it's not just like they paint them, like we get like brand new colors. Like they go through and redo the colors like every 2 years. So like I think next time they're doing like, they're doing some really interesting colors. They're doing like these very Cape Cod kind of colors. So it's like blue, white, and there's like this cranberry trim color that I really like that they're thinking about doing. But anyway, and then we have tennis courts. We have 2 tennis courts. We have a pool that's open, like, you know, for a long time. It's really safe. It's gated. And so, like, we pay for all these amenities, right? Now, our maintenance fee is expensive a month. But let me just put this in perspective for you, okay? Our maintenance fee was $415 and it just went up to $431, which in Indianapolis, that's a high maintenance fee, okay? We pay a high maintenance fee. But, like, some of the things that we get with that are, like, if a tree falls down, they, like, replace it. Like, we got a new patio 2 years. Remember I got the new patio? I think that was while I was on YouTube. You know, we got a new patio. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, you know? Plus, it's not just our house. Like, the neighborhood, our neighborhood is so well maintained. You know, they do a really, really nice job of, you know, keeping the trees up. They always put like potted plants along everywhere. The pool is so nice. I mean, it's just a really nice neighborhood to live in. So, like, we don't mind paying that. But when we're looking at these places in Florida, okay, minimum HOAs in these buildings that I'm talking about, because of the amenities, are like $1,000 to $2,000. No lie. So if you think about the fact that your mortgage is, I mean, you're going to be adding another $1,000 to $1,500 on your mortgage. I told Alex, I said, I mean, we're not in a position to do that right now. That's a lot of money. So, I am more apt to have less in a building and pay less on a maintenance fee, and he is too. We kind of like talked about it. But ideally, we would love to be in one of those buildings, you know? And maybe something financially will change and we'll be able to do that, and, you know, but as of today, like, that's not where we're at with it, so. I just wish we had a place, I don't even care how small it was right now, that we could go back and forth. Because I, honest to God, would load Tucker and Boo up and put him in the car, and I would just drive the 21 hours and let him fly down there when he could. And we could just go back and forth, you know, like, just so we could have a car down there, I would drive down there. He's like, I'm not driving that drive. I'm like, that's fine, I'll drive. I'll drive the 20 hours and listen to audiobooks and Coast to Coast AM, and I'll take the dogs with me so that they can come down there with us. And then, you know, like, you can fly down there and you can meet us. I'm totally fine with that. I would love it. He was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And that's probably what I will do, you know, is I'll probably, unless we get to a point where we have, you know, because my plan is to have 2 places and go back and forth. I think he will do less of that. I think he will, our family's up here and we're not going to ever sell our condo. We will always have 2 places. That's a decision that we've made. But I think he, once he gets to Florida, will probably not want to come home a whole lot. Whereas, I don't think I'll come home for months on end like I used to think. But I do think that I'll come home for like 2 weeks at a time, something like that. 3 weeks is a long time to be back in Indianapolis, and I don't see my family that much anyway, but to see Tanya and go to some meetings and see my sponsor and stuff, you know, I can see myself coming back for 2 weeks. And, but the other thing is that, you know, we probably won't need 2 cars in Miami. So, you know, we could keep 1 car here and 1 car in Miami. And we'll just have to see, you know? It's exciting though, you know, to think about what we're gonna do going forward in the future and how that's all gonna look and all that kind of stuff. I mean, one of the things that's sad is that I'm at a point in my life where I have the ability to even think about having 2 places and going back and forth, you know? Like, it's crazy to think that I'm there. But the other thing is that it's sad because it means I'm nearing, like, the end of my life, like, you know? But the reality is I'm only 47. I'm not, like, 67, which even 67 doesn't sound old to me anymore because I have friends of mine that are 67, you know? So it's like, I've got a lot of good life in me. You know, in all honesty, I wish I had started earlier with, you know, saving money to get a place and all of that kind of stuff. I have so many friends of mine whose, like, parents give them, like, $100,000 to $200,000 to put down on a house, and then another $100,000 to decorate the house, and they're like, have these, like, amazing homes, you know? And their parents are always like, well, we want you to have it now, and blah, 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 whatever, which I think is a really nice gesture. But whenever I'm talking to some of these friends, I'm always like, that is so nice that your parents did that. Like, I can't even imagine, you know, what that would be like. And they always look at me, okay, this kills me. And, I mean, not always, but I've had this conversation with a couple people, and they're like, well, I mean, you got your mom's condo. And I'm like, your dad and mom bought you a $500,000 house and gave you $150,000 plus $100,000 to decorate, just to decorate, okay? My mom died, and I got her condo that is about valued at that, okay? Let's not even start, you know what I mean? I'm just like, I lost a mother to get a place, you know? I mean, like, come on. It kills me what people say sometimes. Dr. Pepper tastes really good. Those are the kind of things though that I used to be jealous of. I'm not really jealous of that anymore, you know, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those people that's like, well, if my dad gave me $150,000 to put down on a house and another $100 to decorate it, I wouldn't take it. I'm not one of those people. If my dad said, you know what, Peter, I'm not going to be here forever, and I'd like to give you $150,000 to put down on a house and another $100 to decorate it, I'd be like, Dad, I think that sounds great. When should we start that process? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't turn him down. I would be like, okay, that's something that's going to make my dad happy. It'll make me happy. Do it. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that's not my position. I know, to the chagrin of a lot of my haters that think that I'm a trust fund baby. That's not the case. I don't receive any money from my father whatsoever. And haven't for quite some time. And so, but whatever. But you know, no, I have a lot of friends of mine who, and they financially, the other thing that's interesting is that they financially do very, very well for themselves. But their parents, like, also help them out financially. Like, at Christmas time, they'll give them, like, $50,000 checks or $5,000 checks. And I'm like, that is crazy to me. Well, you know, like, here's the other thing, though. Being, which I think this is always funny because, like, people only hear, like, one part of the story. But, like, in the past, I would get comments on my videos and people would be like, your daddy pays for everything, blah, blah, blah. Okay. My father was so put through the ringer when I was an addict, and he paid for everything and gave me money and didn't trust me with money. I don't know if people listen to the stories, but my dad would not even hand me a $5 bill today. I mean, my dad would never, he wouldn't get, if I said to him, can I have $5? He'd say, what do you need it for? And if I said, well, I need, you know, like, car washes or something, because he usually gives us car washes for Christmas, he'd say, I'll buy you $5 worth of car washes if that's what you need. My father will never hand me a $1 bill, period. End of story. Those days ended when I was 22 and a half years old and got sober. So, and you know, like, I don't know if I haven't told this story on here for a long time, so, but I actually shared it in my lead last night. So when I got sober, you know, I had, like, my car was, I think, totaled or almost totaled or something from the accident of driving it, you know, through the kitchen part of Perkins and then landing. It was a mess. But anyway, the car was done for. It was just done. So I needed a new car. And my dad was coming and taking me to do a lot of things for that first 6 months. Like, he was taking me grocery shopping, and he was taking me here, and he was taking me to a lot of my appointments, because I just didn't have a way to get there, you know? And, so he was like, at some point, he said, my father, who was, you know, such a great enabler, said, I would be more than willing to, you know, maybe help you get a car if you want to get a car. And I said, okay. And he was like, and this isn't going to be like, we're going to buy like a brand new car, you know, nice. This is because you need a way to get around, and you have no other way to get around right now. So I said, okay. And I talked to my sponsor about it at the time. And my sponsor said, oh, we had been having these conversations about how I was not financially responsible and had never been. And the only way I had ever had that I made money on my own was as a drug dealer, and not a very good one at that. And that I constantly relied on my dad financially. And so we were working on me sitting down with my dad and having a conversation where I was gonna not take money from my dad anymore. And my dad was still helping out with bills and stuff like that. Thankfully, I don't know what I would have done that first year. But what's interesting about this is that I had gone to my dad, like, within the first couple days of getting out of treatment, because I had read the book, The Celestine Prophecy, and it completely changed my life, and I just needed to focus on my sobriety, is what I decided. So my dad gave me till that fall, and he said, okay, I will support you till August. And in August, if you are either going to go back to school full-time, because in the divorce decree, it said that he had to pay for my education and my housing during my education. So he said, in August, you're either going to go back to school full-time, or you are going to have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, and I'm done paying your bills. So that was by August I was supposed to do that. But by May 5th, I had already started working in treatment. I was working at the treatment facility that I ended up working at for 13 years by May 5th. So by August, I was back in school full-time and I was fully financially supporting myself. But not before I had had the conversation with my sponsor about how I needed a new car, and he said, no, we've discussed this. Because he wanted me to sit down and have a conversation with my dad because our relationship was completely built on me needing my dad and my dad giving me money and taking care of me and kind of holding it over my head constantly, right? So we didn't have an honest relationship. And so he wanted me to sit down and talk to my dad and say, I'm not going to take any more money from you. Let's have a conversation about this, right? But I needed a car. So I got a car. And then I got a new sponsor. And it's kind of a bad story, but it's funny too. You know what I mean? In retrospect, I mean, that's who I was at that time. Today I wouldn't do that. My nose is driving me crazy. It's always whenever I trim my beard. Today I wouldn't do that, but I mean, we're talking about, I was 6 months sober at the time. I needed to get a new sponsor anyway, and that's when I got my second sponsor, and I talked to him about it, and he, although he wasn't a super big fan of my first sponsor, he did say, I do agree with him and you do need to sit down and have a conversation with your dad. So at that point, I sat down and I talked to my dad and I said, I want to talk to you about some things. And I said, you know, Dad, our relationship is always built on money, has always been built on money. And he said, I know, because you don't know how to take care of yourself. At that point, I had a full-time job. I was working as a tech in treatment, and I remember my first paycheck was $412 for 2 weeks of work. And I could not believe it because, you know, my dad would hand me a check for a couple $100s or a couple $100 in cash, or, you know, drug dealing, I made a lot of money very, very quickly. I mean, I could have made that in I could have made 3 times that in a half an hour, you know? But that $412 felt amazing because I had earned it. I had earned every cent of that paycheck, and I was so proud of it. And that was the first time in my life I'd ever earned honest money. And so I sat down with my dad. That was in May that I started working there. This would have been like after my 6-month token. So this would have been June, July sometime. I've been working there for a while already. And I sat down and talked to my dad. And I said, you know, like, we talked about our relationship and how I had, you know, just depended on him for money and all this kind of stuff. And he didn't disagree. And he was like, so what's your solution? And I was like, I think I shouldn't take money from you anymore. I think our relationship won't improve. You know, I talked to him about what my sponsor and I have been working on. I think he met my sponsor at that time. So my second sponsor, Steve, ended up dying from a heroin overdose. But that was when I was 4 years sober. So this was way before that. And so anyway, he was like, well, I totally agree, you know, and I didn't rely on my parents, and I always wanted to give you the best of everything, and I wanted you to have the life that I didn't have. And he was like, you know what, I've made you a spoiled brat. And he was like, and I think you do need to learn how to live on your own. And I was like, okay. And so we started working our relationship with it having no bearing on me taking any money from him. And that was 24 and a half years ago. And with, I would say, probably like 1 or 2 exceptions, he's never given me money. And one was the week that my mom passed away. I paid him back for every cent that he's loaned me in the last 24 and a half years. He doesn't give me money for Christmas, birthdays. He won't just give me cash, ever. So, you know, it's weird. Like, my dad and I wouldn't have the relationship that I have with him today. We wouldn't have it if I was still dependent upon money. Now, I think it's been a long enough time that if he said to me, I want to give you $150,000 for a house, I would take it. You know what I mean? I think that we're past that at this point, but I don't know. Maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't. I'd have to talk to my sponsor about it first. You know, I think she would say to me, like, what are the strings attached? Like, she'd say, like, I think she'd... It stopped and I didn't even know it. I don't even know where I was at talking about whatever, but I've been talking about my dad and not taking money from him. Then I was talking about my sponsor, and then I was talking about working in treatment. You know, some of my happiest moments, honest to God, that I look back on my life were when I was the poorest. You know, you don't make money working in a treatment facility. Social workers don't make money. And you can make money as a social worker, though you can. I mean, there's different ways to make, I think, a livable income. I mean, I worked with people that went and left and went places where they made $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year, you know, which I think is a good income for social workers. But I don't know what the salary is for, you know, a working social worker today. I can tell you that, like, non-for-profit treatment programs are some of the lowest paying treatment, some of the lowest paying places in the entire world. I actually was gonna say how much I made when I left there, but I was the highest paid, inpatient person when I left there. And if I told you how much I made, you'd laugh. And that was in 2008. But you know, I never cared. Like, I don't remember ever thinking, like, I don't have enough, or, yeah, I don't remember ever thinking that. I think when I've had less, I've needed less, you know? You know, I don't shop and buy things often for myself, like nice things. And there's a couple of things that I really, really want right now. And I actually have the money to buy them, because some of you have heard me talk about this on here before, that I set a certain amount of money every month aside for, like, shopping, right? Or, like, buying myself one or two nice things. Well, I haven't been really using that money. I was thinking about getting Alex something for Valentine's Day, but we're gonna be in Dallas, and I don't really know what to get him. I don't really know what he would want. And it's kind of easy as far as, like, name brand stuff that you can just, like, go in and get something from, like, Louis Vuitton or whatever, but so there's these Golden Goose shoes that I want that are expensive, and I actually think I'm gonna get them. And then there was something else I wanted. I don't remember what the other thing is. But I was like, you know, I think I'm gonna treat myself and get myself a couple things. Like, I always, like, talk myself out of it. I talk myself out of it. I talk myself out of it, you know? Like, oh, you don't really need that. Why are you getting that? You don't really need that. You're not gonna wear it. You're not gonna use it. But, like, with the Creed cologne, I was like that. And I used the hell out of that Creed cologne. That Joe Malone cologne that I almost didn't buy because I thought I'll never use it. Like, I wear it all the time. I love that Joe Malone. It's one of my favorites. It's like 154 or 654 or whatever. I love it. I actually have a list in my phone, and it's called Things I Want. And the list is like, has like 10 or 20 things on there. I was gonna say 10 or 15, but I think it's like 10 or 20 things on there. But I've kept the same list, you guys. Oh, a Patagonia suitcase, that's what I want. I've kept the things on there for, I don't know, ever. And I feel like the things that I buy are things that I can kind of keep and use over a long period of time. Like that bottle of Creed. God, what is going on with my nose? That bottle of Creed I've had for a long time. The Joe Malone I've had for, you know, a couple months, 2 months maybe now. And there's hardly any of it gone from there. I really like that cologne that I got. That's called By the Fireside, that I got at Sephora too. I really, really like that one. I think I want to get another one of those. But those are expensive, and I would say that if I was gonna go, like the Joe Malone's the same price, I think I would go with the Joe Malone instead. Although it's kind of like a softer scent. So I don't need these things, but I do think I'm gonna start treating myself to some stuff, because I'm like, you know, it's weird. Like, I always have like these kind of like contradictory ideas. Like, it's like you can't take it with you, but you're not gonna live forever. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't take it with you, so this stuff is pointless to buy, but you're not gonna live forever, so you might as well buy some of these things and enjoy them while you're here. It's kind of how I feel about them, you know? So I don't know. I do need to go to Lush too, because I want to buy some, I don't know, maybe I'll take do a little shopping spree this week. I need to go to Lush and buy some shampoo and some conditioner and stuff too, because I'm out of that. I think Dallas is supposed to have some fantastic shopping, and I would love to do shopping there, but like, I'm not going to have the room to bring it back, you know what I mean? Plus, I need to not be doing all that. Now, people keep on telling me that I need to go visit the Starbucks Reserve in Dallas. I don't guess I really know what that means. Does that mean it's like this big Starbucks in Dallas or something? Like, I don't know what that means. Can somebody explain that to me in the comment section below? If you're from Dallas or you've been there, will you put a couple places that you think, we're staying downtown, will you tell me a couple places that you think that I should review while I'm there? And we're going to a wedding one night, and then one night we are going out to dinner with our very good Judy that lives there, that was Alex's friend. So it was Alex and two other guys, when they called themselves Team America, when I first met Alex, and he had two of his best friends. One of his friends still lives here, and we went to his wedding in Wisconsin like a couple years ago, and he and his husband are really sweet. I love them. I have some funny stories from back in the day. So then our other friend, he moved to New York God, about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. God, we've been together so long. Oh, he moved the year that we got married, so it would have been 8 years ago. And then he moved to Dallas like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So we have never been to New York to visit him when he was there, and we've never been to, maybe Alex saw him when Alex went to New York for a work thing, so he may have seen him there, but I don't think so. But that's funny, because the girl that he went to New York for this work thing is the girl that's getting married in Dallas. She now lives in Dallas. So there's a couple of us that are couples that are going out there that are all friends that Alex has like worked with for years and years and years. So we're all going to that. That'll be real fun. And then our friend got dinner reservations at this really nice restaurant in Dallas. So we're going to that one night. And then another night we're just going to kind of low-key it, and then we're going to be back. I mean, it's just like we're there for like a split second. I'm really excited about it though. It'll be kind of fun to just get away for a couple days. All right, you guys, listen, I've gone longer than I thought I was gonna go, so I am going to get off here now. I will say this, depending on what I do at the Oscars, I may not make videos on my other channels on Sunday. So if you're watching this on Sunday and you typically watch my other channels and, you know, whatever, I may not make videos over there. I'll probably announce it on Twitter or something if I don't, just because I have the book club from 4 to 5. I've got to stop and get gas. I can't believe the gas thing hasn't gone off yet. I have the book club from 4 to 5, and then if I get off there, I'm going to want to rest a little bit before the Academy Awards. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I make videos or not. I've made so many videos. I've been making 4 to 5 videos a day on all of my channels. I've been keeping up on BookTube too. I'm really proud of myself. So anyway, I hope you guys are having an amazing Sunday. Unless you have other plans, but like I always say, don't have other plans. Enjoy your day. Relax today. Do something fun. Watch a documentary on Netflix or some fun movie, or, I don't know, a cartoon on Disney Plus if you like that kind of stuff. Go watch that one with the baby Yoda. What is that called? I don't know, the Mandalanda or something. And do something today that you'll be proud of yourself for doing when you look back on your life 5 or 10 years from now. If nobody else has told you this today, I love you. Make sure that you look at yourself. I love you. I love you. Make sure that you look at yourself in the mirror every single day and you say to yourself, I love you, you are valuable, you are important, you matter, you are worthy, you are beautiful, you are handsome. Today is going to be a great day, and 2020 is your year. You're going to accomplish all of your dreams this year and be super successful. And most importantly, make sure that you pass it on to somebody else and let them know how important they are to you. Make sure that you, don't forget Pee-Pee. Hi, Pee-Pee. Most importantly, make sure that you let somebody know how much that they mean to you. Call them up, let them know. Say, hey, I was thinking of you today. Thought I'd, bring you some flowers, or I don't know, a pound of coffee, and or some homemade bread or cookies or whatever. And just practice some random acts of kindness today. Just something small. And I love you guys. And I hope you are having a great Oscar night. And if you're watching the Oscars or the Academy Awards, and if you're watching this on April 10th of 2021, hey, welcome to the Wolfpack. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya! Thought I'd do one last extra. Love ya!